Hey, what's up everybody? It's Christian with Reaper Disc, and today I am out at the Rick and Sylvia Vokes Disc Golf Course in Bowling Green, Kentucky to teach you guys a little bit about disc stability. Now, a lot of beginners, they get caught up in the verbiage and the different ways of talking about a disc and its flight, and a lot of times, it's very overwhelming until you learn what these mean. The two biggest things you're going to hear are understable versus overstable. And if you've ever wondered yourself, what do those mean? I'm going to break it down for you really fast. So a disc that is understable, and the best way to determine, overstability versus understability is to be able to throw the disc at the correct speed and throw it flat. That way you can tell what it's going to do in the air. You can also look at the flight numbers for these, but I'll kind of think of this as with an asterisk because every disc manufacturer comes up with their own flight numbers. So they're not necessarily the same, despite the numbers being identical. They might not be the same from brand to brand, but that's a different video. So whenever you think about an understable disc versus an overstable disc, here are the big major differences. When thrown, a disc that is overstable is going to resist turn, which and we'll just do this as a right-handed backhand player. If you are a right-hand forehand or left-hand backhand, just flip-flop the directions here. So as a righty backhand player, a disc that is overstable will resist turning, which is going from left to right and getting over onto an Anheuser angle, and will fade more at the end, which is where it's going to get back on a Heiser angle and then move from right to left. Now, in contrast, an understable disc is going to turn more, so it's going to move more from left to right without moving so much right to left at the end of the flight. Now, there are four main things. There are a myriad of different things that are going to affect disc stability, but the four main ones are going to be mold, the weight, the wear, and how hard you throw it. So we'll first start off as the biggest difference maker between disc, gonna make it understable versus overstable, is the mold itself. So I have two discs, both 9-speed. I have a Champion Firebird and I have a Halo Roadrunner. So the Firebird is a very overstable 9-speed disc. It doesn't want to turn hardly at all, and it wants to fade a lot as it slows down. On the other hand, the Roadrunner has a lot of high-speed turn, so it really wants to turn over and move from left to right, but it doesn't have a lot of low-speed stability, which means as it slows down, it doesn't want to fade or move from right to left at the end of the flight. Now, I'll put the flight numbers for the Firebird there versus the Roadrunner there. That way you can see the difference in the flight numbers, but like I said, we'll get into flight numbers on a different video. So let's throw the Firebird and show you how an overstable disc flies. Alright, so on the opposite end of the spectrum as the Firebird, I have the Roadrunner. This is also a 9-speed disc, but this is very, very understable as opposed to the Firebird. So watch as I try to throw this the exact same way, same speed, same angle as the Firebird, and how it's going to behave pretty well mirror opposite as what the Firebird did. So you see how that disc got over onto a turnover after I released it and never even really wanted to come out. It kind of got back to flat, but it continued drifting to the right the entire flight. All right, so the next big thing to consider on how overstable versus understable a disc is going to be is the weight of the disc. So I have two different destroyers here. This is a max weight destroyer. This is a 170 destroyer. So there's about a 5-gram difference. And this actually gets more exaggerated the more space there is between the two weights. So I'm going to throw the max weight destroyer, which is 175 grams, and you'll see how much more overstable it is than the lightweight. That's because the lightweight can actually travel a little faster, and we'll get into speed and how speed affects stability in just a second. But for now, it's just important to know that the lighter a disc is, typically the more understable it's going to be. So this is the max weight destroyer. So throwing the max weight destroyer, I released it flat at about, what a 12 speed would be. And it had that slight little bit of turn as indicated by the flight numbers that the destroyer is characteristic to have. However, as it progressed down through the fairway, the overstability in the fade of that disc started kicking in, bringing it back to the left on a hyzer angle. Now, for the lighter weight destroyer, I'm going to release it flat as well at about the same speed. Now the big difference here is that this is going to want to start turning more and resist fading at the end of the flight. So instead of it flattening back out and coming back rather quickly, it's going to want to hold a turnover and be a little more understable the further it goes, and maybe get back to flat and fade, but it's going to be a lot more gentle and just less aggressive than what the max weight destroyer is. All right, so now that you know how weight can affect the flight and the stability of a disc, now we're going to talk about speed. So if you throw a disc at the speed that it's labeled as, and for this, I'm going to use two JK AVRs. These are a 2-speed disc, but if you throw them faster than what a 2-speed would be, it's actually going to make them less overstable and more understable. That is because the faster a disc goes, the more likely it is to turn with what is called high-speed turn, and that is what that turn rating in the flight numbers are. As the disc slows down, that's when the low-speed stability starts kicking in, which is what the fade number is. Now, if you throw the disc exactly the speed that it's listed in the flight numbers, or roundabouts what it should be, then it's going to fly pretty well exactly like the flight numbers indicate. But if you throw it faster, it's going to act more understable. And, in contrast, if you throw it slower, it's actually going to be more overstable. So, I'm going to throw two AVRs. I'm going to throw one right at about a 2-speed and let you see the flight of it, versus another that I'm going to throw closer to probably a 7 or 8 speed, and watch how understable this gets. All right, now let's try the wide AVR and watch it be a lot more understable. So yes, it did go further than the blue AVR. However, it stayed on a turnover the entire way. That's because I overpowered that disc from what it's supposed to be thrown at. Now, there are advantages to this, and you can make a disc do some pretty cool stuff and some really good shot shapes by knowing what it does at different speeds and how that affects stability. And the last big thing that affects disc stability is wear. The more you beat a disc in, the more understable it's going to be, especially at high speeds. To demonstrate this, I have two T-Bird 3s roughly the same weight. The first one is a Halo T-Bird 3 that is rather new. The second is a Star T-Bird 3 that is really beat up. I've had this in the bag for multiple years now, and it's gotten seasoned to the point that it's nice and flippy, which is another word for understable, if you didn't know that already. So I'm going to throw both of these about the same speed and the same release angle and watch the differences in flight. All right, now let's try the beat up T-Bird 3 and watch how much more understable it is. All right, so there are the four main things that affects disc stability and how to tell the difference between understable versus overstable. There are a myriad of other things that can affect how a disc flies and whether or not it's understable or overstable, such as wind, temperature, different kinds of plastics. The list goes on and on and on. This can also be manipulated by changing your release angle. You know, you can get an overstable disc to turn over if you force it onto an anhyzer, the same as if you take an understable disc and throw it on a hyzer, it can still hyzer and be overstable. There are a lot of different things that are going to affect the way your disc flies, so the most important thing is to get out in a field and practice with the disc you have and learn what they do on different angles, with different speeds, and everything else. Also, pay attention when you buy discs to what weight they are. It's an often overlooked thing that sometimes you can get some random off-weight discs that you didn't pay attention to, and they can either be a lot more overstable or understable than what you're expecting. So what did you guys think of these tips? Do you think they're helpful, and are you going to use some of this stuff out on the course? Drop us a comment and let us know. If you want to start exploring different kinds of molds in all different kinds of weights and different plastics, click the link in the description of this video to head over to reaperdisc.com to start shopping and filling your bag with a whole variety of different things. If you want to find this shirt that I'm wearing today, you can also find it at reaperdisc.com. Follow us at reaperdisc on all social media to keep up to date with inventory restocks, new releases, things of that sort. And you can also subscribe to the channel. It doesn't cost you anything. Like this video and you'll be the first to know whenever we drop new content like this. Again, I'm Christian with Reaper Discs, and I'll see you guys in the next video.